All right, guys. Hey, we're back to working on the Fummins today. The black '96 F250 we picked up from Florida. Already had the Cummins in it for those people that are just joining us. It wasn't finished though. The second half of a Cummins swap is probably the hardest. The easy part's yanking the engine out and just putting the engine back in with some new engine mounts. It's the intercooler lines, the electrical, the fuel system, you know, hooking up the hydraulic brakes or hydraulic boost brakes. Those are the hard linkage. List goes on. So we're here to show you all the stuff how to do that. And if you haven't already and you like what you see, previous videos, this video, hit that subscribe button down below. Hit it right now. Smash that thing. Anyways, so we're gonna go ahead and get started on some of that small stuff. Just to give a small recap, we had the interior kind of torn apart, getting rid of some of those electric lines, like, you know, that were kind of just hanging all down. Turned out there was a security system in this beast, so we got rid of that thing. It wasn't even working anyways. Got rid of the horn that was in here. That wasn't working anyways. They had an aftermarket, some kind of speaker horn. Got rid of the hold on a second. Got rid of the sound system that was behind the seat. It was kind of hacked together a little bit. So the interior is kind of back to the point where it's a nice canvas. It's a nice canvas where we can kind of do what we want to do now. Put some gauges in there, clean it up. Some of those faded areas, get new door panels. The floor is in really good condition for being a '96. It's original rubber floor. Here's the sound system that we took out. I'm not really a big fan of the aftermarket, you know, big subwoofers and, you know, booming down the road. I like to hear kind of the diesel engine and, you know, maybe a country song or two. But that's me. Everyone else has their own taste. So let's we got a lot of work to do getting this little stuff hooked up. So let's get to work. All right, guys, we got the tail lights in, we got the bumper on. Okay, starting to look like a little bit of a truck, right? I gotta adjust that bumper actually, but I'll do that once the tailgate's on, when I get a tailgate. So I don't know if I ever told you this, but when we first got the truck, the tailgate had a little bit of rust on it. Okay, you see that? Here's the tailgate. So yours truly goes into the back of the truck and gets all the parts out, which you saw in the first video, episode 1 on this black truck, piled full of parts, right? Climb in, I climb over the wheel well, right? So I'll hop on the rear tire, just like any man, right up and over, handing the parts to Matt. Well, guess what? My fat butt steps on the tailgate, handing him parts. Right through I go. Bent the tailgate, right? Big old bow in it. I don't think that's a factory bow. Enough where the tailgate falls off the truck, and I'm pretty embarrassed. So, long story short, there's a diet coming soon for this guy. So, all right, well, enough about my weight. Matt's here now. He's up there working on the electrical parts. All right, what do you got going on?
Putting key on power to everything that needs key on power.
Key on power, for whoever didn't hear you. So
the fuel pump,
we're chasing down these wires.
Solenoid for the starter.
Yeah, fuel pump. Key on power to the solenoid. Key on power to...
Oh no, the solenoid gets when you bump the key all the way forward.
Well, we got mechanical fans, so we don't got electrical fans. We don't have to worry about that. I'm trying to think what else. Alright, well, I'm going to work on getting the filler neck for the fuel completed and done, final install, and getting the return line for the fuel tank to the return line on the diesel engine. And let's go from there. So when I installed the fuel neck for the tank, I didn't realize that the gas versions of these Ford trucks have a smaller nozzle hole in them. So what we had to do is we had to take a hole saw and pretty much just cut out the flapper that was inside the neck of this. I'll show you. So we had to just pretty much cut it out. Now, I haven't done it on the rear tank yet, so I can show you the hole for the rear tank, what I'm talking about. So you see how small that hole is? So anyone with a gas truck wanting to make it a diesel, whether it's doesn't matter what, you know, you go to the pump, you're not even going to be able to put there's two usually different sizes, smaller one and a big one. Big one's kind of for semis and dump trucks, smaller one for pickup trucks or even cars, and even the smaller nozzle wouldn't fit in there. So we hole sawed it out, it's all good to go. All right, on to the next step.
What's going on today, guys? I'm gonna give you a rundown quick on what we did to get this engine started. Pretty much the same thing you would do if you were gonna start it on an engine stand or sitting inside of an old tire or mounted in a truck. You're gonna need all the same things. You're gonna need a wire run, a thick, heavy wire. You can see that down there. That big, thick, heavy wire is gonna take from the battery down to the starter. That's supplying all of your big heavy cranking amps, so it's got to be a real thick wire. You also need a small, it can be about this size here, even a little smaller. It's just a little signal wire. That's going to be your wire that goes from, in our case, it goes from the solenoid over there and runs down to the starter. That signals the starter solenoid to engage when you turn the key all the way forward to the cranking. That's that signal wire. So that starter has power all the time, and it has a ground all the time, and then it gets a signal from your key all the way forward, or if you don't have it in a truck like this, you just take and run it to a positive lead on a battery and just tap it, and you holding it there is doing what the turning the key all the way forward is doing. That's supplying that terminal with power that's telling the starter solenoid to engage and the starter motor to spin. So you also need a big heavy ground. That was our problem when we first started trying to start it. We didn't have the chassis ground hooked up. Well, it was hooked up, it wasn't tight. So we went underneath and tightened that up. That's another big thick, that's actually this wire here. That runs from directly from the negative terminal. It runs down and it goes right to the engine block. There's also one that runs to the frame. You know, you really can't run enough grounds. Grounds are the biggest culprit of electrical issues, is not having a good ground. So if you're, you know, like I said, if you're running this on an engine stand, you just got to make sure you have that good ground run to the engine somewhere. A lot of guys will just run it right through one of the bolts on the starter. That way your starter and your engine block are grounded. After that, you need your fuel supply. So we had it in the truck, we hooked up our air dog pump. If you weren't doing that, you can just as easily, we've done it in the past, there's your fuel supply into your pump, run a line. Actually, if you still had your lift pump on, it'd be easier. Hook it right into a bucket just full of clean diesel or a diesel can, and let the lift pump lift it up. If you don't have that, you can just kind of siphon it or hold the bucket up higher and let gravity flow it into the pump just to run it. You don't want to starve the pump for fuel. It's really not good for it. These pumps, pretty much any diesel engine, that's why additives are so popular. They get their lubrication from the diesel fuel themselves for most of the components. A pump like this actually has oil that gets fed into the pump as well, but that still doesn't do everything. Your delivery valves and all that stuff, the lubricity in the diesel fuel is what lubricates the pump. That's why European made diesels, they're made a lot differently. That's a huge problem with the Duramaxes and the CP4 pumps. on the newer Duramaxes and Cummins engines, they're made in Europe and they have a lot more lubricity in their fuel than we do here in America. So that's why fuel additives are popular. They definitely don't hurt anything. So you need a fuel supply, you need your battery, and then you need air, which is going to come from your turbo. It doesn't have to be charge cooled. You know, like when we first ran it, I think we had this open like this. It's no big deal. It's not going to build any boost or anything. It's not going to run as efficiently. A lot of big diesel engines, when you get to that high horsepower stuff, when they lose the turbo, they turn into just a 350 Chevy. They got no power. So but just to run it, make sure you have something healthy. It's no big deal. So what we did here, we obviously had our starter wires all hooked up. That was mostly done for us when we got it shipped here. So we did get a new solenoid. That's a starter solenoid over there that takes that big thick cable that is on your right. I don't know how well you can see it. And then there's a signal wire on the top. Let me get closer so you can see. So this wire here, that gets hot when you turn the key all the way forward. That opens this solenoid, and that sends our power over to our fuel shutoff solenoid, which is mounted here on the side of the pump. If you don't have that hooked up, just lift it up. That's all it does. It pulls it up. So it gets 12 volts constantly. That constant voltage isn't as high as your momentary voltage. Your constant voltage is what holds it up. The momentary is when you turn the key all the way forward. That's what actually actuates it to lift it up. Lifting it up takes more than holding it up does. And then there's a ground. So you have these 3 wires here that control that. So we wired that up. We wired the air dog up. I had everything run on gator clips just off of the battery. So this is hot. This is ground for the air dog pump. We had our signal wire, which causes this solenoid to lift. Then we had our constant voltage. I believe the signal wire was run to the battery with a gator clip, and then the constant is hooked up to that solenoid. That once that key turns all the way forward, that solenoid opens and it supplies that voltage through there. The reason you can't do it straight from the key is that your tumbler inside of your key switch isn't going to allow enough amperage to go through. It'll burn it up. It'll try it. It'll absolutely try it. And that's where a lot of guys run into electrical problems. They end up, you know, you burn your truck down if you're not careful, if you don't know about the way the different amp draws and things work. If you hook up a wire, like say I wanted to run that starter off of this little wire here, it'll absolutely try and do it, but this wire is going to instantly get so hot I can't hold it and burn it up. And that's because of the amperage. It's all 12 volts direct current, but it's different amps. That's going to call for say 30 amps, whereas the fuel system is going to call for like 5. And that's why your different fuse sizes, obviously you have different fuse sizes. That's to kind of protect. You don't want to put too big of a fuse in something. If something only calls for 7 amps, they'll probably have a 10 amp fuse in it. That way if it goes over those amps, it blows that fuse. If you throw a 30 in there, it's going to burn the wire up. The wires will have different amp ratings on them. If you don't put the right fuse with the, you know, if you're hooking your system all up just willy-nilly and you're not really paying attention to what you're doing, that's how you run into an issue with, you know, burning your truck down. So make sure you guys, you know, pay attention to what you're doing. I am by no means an expert. I haven't been doing this that many years, but you know, the more you dive in, the more questions you ask, you know, that's how you learn. So when you go to the parts store, you know, just ask. If you have a parts store that you can ask questions to, if you go in there and you feel like you're smarter than the guys behind the parts counter, you need a new parts store. That's just all it is. Parts guys, you know, they help you out a ton. Not saying eventually, you know, your goal should be maybe one day be smarter than all of them, but you know, if you're a new to this kind of work and you're going in trying to buy parts and you know you guys are staring at you like you're insane, you know, maybe switch it up. Maybe go to a different store, see who you can talk to. Find some old guy with a gray beard and maybe a bad attitude and just start picking his brain. You know, he's either a dick or you know he's just not getting challenged. So you know, ask him some questions, make friends with the guys. You know, it's a great way to learn a lot about a bunch of different things. So right now we're working on getting everything wired in correctly. So our solenoid is over here, everything's run now. It used to just be kind of laying on top. Robert went through and ran everything underneath. So I'm going through, I have a wire here, a factory wire, that this is hot. Once you turn the key forward, this is hot all the time. This wire here on the top of this solenoid, this wire gets hot when you turn the key all the way forward. So that's the one that's going to control the starter, and that's the one that's also going to send the signal to the fuel shutoff solenoid to have that lift up. Right now I'm going to wire into the key on, which is this one. It's hot all the time once you turn the key on. That's going to get our fuel pump. So once the fuel or the key is turned forward into the on position, your radio comes on, you can use your lights and things like that. The fuel pump will also be on. Some guys run that on a switch because they don't want to run their pumps all the time. If you're just sitting there trying to figure out if your turn signals are working or something like that, or if you're just sitting trying to shoot the shit and have the radio on, you don't necessarily want your fuel pump on all the time. I don't think we did that on Robert's brown truck, and I don't think we're going to do it on this one, but it isn't a bad idea. Some guys I know, even they've had me put in a switch and they hide them somewhere, and if they go to what they deem to be a bad part of town, they turn their fuel pump off, and that way if somebody did try and steal their truck, they're not going to make it very far. I don't know how beneficial that really is, but I'll wire it in for them if that's what they want. So I'm going to keep on plugging away. As far as the coolant stuff, we didn't have any coolant stuff hooked up. It takes quite a while for these diesel engines to warm up, especially just sitting idling with no load on them. Especially you guys that are, if you're a diesel guy in Wisconsin winter, you know how long it takes to get a truck to warm up. It's a lot of guys like to put high idle and stuff on because it takes a while to build heat in these engines. So if you're just trying to run it, make sure you have something good. Don't worry about the air, don't worry about the coolant. Just get a fuel source, get that thing cranking over, and listen to it run 5 minutes. You're not gonna hurt anything. Just make sure it has oil is the biggest thing. Other than that, we're gonna get back to it, and hopefully today we're gonna finish the linkage so that I can, we don't have to crawl underneath and shift it by hand. We'll get the linkage figured out, and hopefully by the end of the day we have this thing moving back and forth like any other truck. Sitting in the cab, run through the gears, maybe we'll drive it around a little bit, show you guys that. So stay tuned.
All right guys, we're back to working on the black truck. It's been a couple days. Just like I said before, parts and life in general, work, kids. Matt doesn't have any kids.
I do not.
He's trying though. Every day. So he says. Anyways, so we have a ton of things to do, and Matt will get to that in a second, but I know that I'm gonna be working on some exhaust. I gotta run one more fuel line. We're still waiting on one fitting in the mail, and I got the tie down. I got a bolt down the bed. We're gonna try to get that second battery in, get the windshield washer, coolant lines all in, and maybe an air filter on or so, and we're pretty much gonna be ready to take this thing for a first test drive. So other than that, let's get to it. Hey, and if you haven't, hit that subscribe button. Matt, tell them.
Hit it. Hit the button.
Hit it hard, please.
We're never gonna be famous without you.
All right, well, we're gonna get back to working in this amazing climate up here in Wisconsin where it's 42 degrees on a Monday morning. And yeah, make sure you have your Carhartt jacket. So other than that,
Carhartt, sponsored,
let's get to it.
Send the check.
All right, let's do this. All right, we've been working on the black truck all day. I've kind of done a couple time lapses of us working, but at the end of the day, here it is. We got a couple things just kind of loosely put in, but most of all, it's all tidied up where we could possibly take it for a test drive. I don't have an air filter at this time, but me and Matt have been working on odds and ends. He was working a lot on wiring, getting it to start with the key, mainly trying to chase down exactly what the previous owner did, which electrical can sometimes just take time. I did the fuel block off plate, which I'll show everyone here. I actually bought a 350 small block, or so should I say a small block Chevy block off plate. Now if everyone can see, I'm gonna reach down in here. See that? Sorry for the shakiness, but yeah, so went to O'Reilly Auto Parts, bought a small block Chevy fuel block off plate, and it bolted right on. Didn't have to do any kind of fabrication work whatsoever, and it cost $10. So that was awesome. So anyone out there that is putting a fast or an air dog system on their truck, maybe they bought it used like I bought mine, or found it off of a truck at the junkyard, you need that block off plate, you didn't have one, there you go. We got the intercooler pipe just primed, it's in there right now. Like I said before, we're still gonna get an air filter, but other than that, fuel lines are plumbed, fluids are topped off, right?
Yep.
Fluids are topped off. I think we have enough here where we can at least try to take it for a test drive. All right, let's see what would happen. You want to start it with the key?
Yeah, start it. I'm gonna watch.
You want to give it fuel?
No, you should just be able to crank it up.
The accelerator line even hooked up?
Yeah. Try it once more. The pedal works. It's hooked up. The battery was almost dead because I had the lights and everything on all day. Through the gears? It is.
Is the
shifter's the linkage is moving. Run it through again. Yep. Yep. No.
Is the flywheel bolts in?
I mean, yeah, they gotta be. I mean, you can see the torque converter spinning. It's gotta, I mean, I did notice that the output shaft looks like it's out, like that's not the right drive shaft. Like it just is close. But I guess I checked the tranny fluid with it off and it was like way over.
It would still want to move.
It was way over full.
It would still want to move.
Yeah, because it was way over full with the truck off. So I figured, you know, once it starts, it's gonna.
That can't be good, Matt.
It's gonna. Well, no, because once it starts, it sucks it all up into the torque converter and stuff. I didn't know what. If it ever ran full of fluid.
The belt, the torque converter was moving.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be the training fluid. It still move with the without training fluid. Barely, but it would.
No, it would not. But not if you didn't have any. I didn't think it was the fluid either. I just wanted to make sure it was still in there.
Well, I'm sure it's a little. Well, unless we did we filter any fluid?
No, it was full when we got it.
All right, Matt. What's the plan? We're gonna take the donor truck.
We're gonna take the donor truck, rally it into the shop. We're gonna pull the engine and the transmission in one shot. Then we're gonna push the scrap truck out of the way. We're gonna take the transmission off, send it out to get rebuilt. We're gonna go through the Cummins engine to put in the 6.4 plow truck.
We have a for everyone out there, we have a 6.4 plow truck that we've been meaning to do a Cummins swap on. So that will be a different day. But we'll put that engine to the side. We'll take the transmission, get it rebuilt. Get this transmission out in the meantime while that one's getting rebuilt. Throw the transmission in with the transfer case. Get our 2 different drive shafts made up at Badger Truck in Milwaukee, and it should be a running driving truck. In the meantime, we'll also fix
to Badger Truck sponsorship. Send the check.
also we'll go ahead and fix the oil leaks during the time we're waiting. That should be it though, right? Yeah. All right, for everyone else, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.
All right, I'm gonna go back to my day job.
What, looking ugly?
How do you make this little thing stand up?
That's what she said.